Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. I must not talk to you unless you address me first? As you wish. After that, am I the jerk for criticizing how my girlfriend acts during job interviews? And after that, forced to move cabins by management. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to eat anchovies. I sit here smelling you all day, Reddit boy. You really don't think I can handle anchovies? So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. I must not talk to you unless you address me first? As you wish. I, 43 female, am an experienced landscape gardener, but due to an accident many years ago, I can no longer work the actual craft. In 2020, after 12 years of being a stay-at-home mom, I began working in the office of a quite large landscaping firm. My position was assistant to management, with Jack, one of the COOs, as my direct boss. At the time, I did mostly supporting paperwork. A couple of months later, the company hired Becky as a junior manager. She had just finished her master's degree, and this was her first real job, so she had a lot to learn. In the beginning, she relied on me for the paperwork and how our programs worked, and I thought we got along well, even though we were as different as two people can be. In spring of 2021, there were some changes made. For one, our whole department moved to new office rooms, and Becky and I were put in the same office. Also, I was taken out of day-to-day paperwork to exclusively work on surveying to get all the measurements needed to correctly bill our clients. About that time, our problem started. I'm on the ADHD spectrum, so I have habits of unconsciously fiddling or talking to myself and other stuff that unnerved her. She needed absolute quiet while working, whereas I prefer to hear music over headphones. Every time she told me something I did would disturb her, I tried to stop myself from doing that, be it mumbling, listening to music while she's in the office, even drinking coffee because your slurping is disgusting. I was not allowed to comment on anything concerning her. I'm a terribly curious person, and so on. Even though I love my job and everyone else in that company, that daily repression made me not want to go to work in the morning. It came to a head when one of our foremen was in the office. She gave him a task, he was annoyed, and I made a fun little comment that made the foreman chuckle, lightened his mood as intended. But after he had left, she exploded on me. How dare I undermine her authority, and how I had disrespected her position and what kind of a person I was. After all, she was a manager and I was merely the assistant. She went to Jack to complain about me, how she could not work with me when I was so obnoxious, yada yada. Long story short, Jack is a super chill boss. He talked to me to hear my side, and 3 days later, I moved all my stuff into another, smaller office where I've worked ever since. As I mentioned, I do the surveying for all managers' projects who need it, also for Becky. And she was very particular in how the plans had to be laid out, which items had to be on them, and so on. So when I did a survey and drafted the plans, we had to have several discussions and corrections about minute details none of the other managers even cared about. Everybody else, when I had a question regarding their projects, I would go to their office, see if they were free, and ask for the information that I needed, if I couldn't just draw it from the documentation. Not with Becky. She demanded I make appointments with her to schedule meetings to talk about these issues. That dragged work on her projects to absurd lengths. Also, she would give me deadlines for finishing and then take 1 to 4 weeks before even looking at what I had made. Then she would want to discuss that when I was already at the next project over. It was a pain. In December of 2021, we had another falling out when she questioned me about a project that I had finished in October and got upset when I couldn't immediately recall all the details. I mumbled something like, maybe assemble the bill not 2 months after finishing the project, and she blew up. How dare you tell me how to do my work? I know what I'm doing. I don't have to put up with a lowly assistant. I left, and luckily that was the last day of work in 2021. In 2022, work started with Becky calling me to her and instructing me on how we would proceed in the future. I was not to talk with her while working unless she approached me first or if we had a scheduled meeting. Also, I was only to talk to her about the tasks she had assigned to me, nothing else, as it was not my position to tell her how to do her job. Breaks were fair game, but by then my interest in making conversation with her had faded, so that's how it went. At this point, I have to mention that as part of my job, I sometimes look at the charts of work that has already been done, how much soil has been brought in, how much of which materials have been used, to get an idea of what needs to be included in the survey. In Becky's lists, I sometimes notice typing mistakes, like the surveyed amount of square meters entered when the volume, cubic meters, was demanded, which resulted in too high bills, which led to complaints by the client and reduction of the bill. I tried to tell that to Becky, but she stopped me before I really began, pointing out again I had to focus on my job and not to speak to her unless addressed by her first. Okay. For other managers, I would simply have corrected the mistake after quick consultation, but for her, nope. In the following months, I noticed a couple of these mistakes in her projects, but I kept my mouth shut. Also did not go to Jack about it because I did not want to appear like I was blackmailing her or something. Over the summer, I noticed more and more mistakes and how projects that had been finished in the spring had still not been billed. But somehow, Becky found the time to go on summer vacation twice. I noticed undocumented items, false entries, lacking entries, and other mistakes in the lists of her projects, and said nothing. In early August, she had finally assembled the bill for one of her bigger projects that had been finished months ago and forbade anyone to talk to her while she worked on the next. Then I received an email. The client who had received the aforementioned bill had rejected it due to the amount of mistakes and lack of confirmability. I had been CC'd as the surveyor, but the problem was not my surveys, but that Becky had not transferred the results correctly. The client denied payment and demanded immediate correction. The sum was around 250,000 euros, money the company had been waiting for months by the time. This was serious, so I decided to break my silence and tell Becky. She saw me through the glass door, and before my hand touched the handle, she yelled, "Don't talk to me." Well then, what's a girl to do? Wait for about 15 minutes until my super chill boss, who had been walking his dog over lunch break, returned to his computer. Of course, he had been CC'd as well, and his roar made the walls shake. Jack went to Becky's office and tore her a new one. Afterwards, came to me and asked me to please correct the lists as far as I'm able. In the following days, he went through all of Becky's projects, and needless to say, she's been gone since September. She wanted me to do everything her way, and I tried to comply with so much crap, but in the end, I complied so much, it got her fired. Am I the jerk for criticizing how my girlfriend acts during job interviews? My girlfriend is at a job she can't do remotely, and we're planning to move to another state together, so she's job hunting right now. Her first interview, she had a call with a top company whose recruiter had messaged her on LinkedIn. I was expecting her to treat it normally, but she spent an hour grilling the company on its engineering practices, then withdrew her application. And the next few calls with companies she basically grilled them all and decided against moving forward with 4 of the 6. I told her around then that I feel like she's making a mistake, being so picky, and she's gonna ruin her reputation in the industry if she's going around taking interviews and cutting the process off early. She said she wasn't making any enemies. The companies she dropped had been emailing and calling constantly, wanting to bring her in for another interview or asking her to reconsider. If anything, she was a hotter commodity. I felt she was probably still hurting her reputation long-term, even if her little power play was working for a bit. She said it wasn't a power play, it was professional. She just didn't want to waste anyone's time. But the next interview I overheard started a big argument. One of her final 2 companies had her taking a Zoom interview, and she was laughing it up with an interviewer, and he was telling her this story about how he and his coworkers fell off a barge into the river working on a project. And she was just like, "Wait, they had y'all doing that? Not tied off to anything?" Look, as funny as that is, that's honestly kind of messed up that they put you in danger like that. I'm honestly gonna have to withdraw my application. She got off the phone and said, "Dang, people really tell on themselves if you just listen and smile. Did you hear that?" And I said that I thought she ended it a little prematurely, like didn't even ask if they had changed anything there, just ended the call. I said it felt like she was trying to delay getting a new job. Was she getting cold feet or something? She said no, this is literally how people at her level interview. She was serious about the interview process, and she wasn't interested in walking into a crap show. I said that was BS. She was sabotaging herself on purpose by treating these companies like this who want to hire her. And she was like, "Why do they keep coming back for more then? Like, I'm critical, but I'm not wrong, and they know it." We had this big fight where she insisted that anyone who was at her level of a career interviewing companies to see whether they were worth their time, just as much as the other way around. And I said that was BS. She got mad I was telling her about her own career and said she knew it better. Am I the jerk for arguing with my girlfriend about her interviews? I feel like she's dragging her feet. She says she's interviewing normally for her field. You're the jerk. Stop mansplaining how to interview for a job that you do not do and in a field you do not know. It isn't an issue until it becomes an issue. Yes, I'm assuming OP's gender. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend is actually doing this right. She should be interviewing the company and withdrawing when they don't meet her expectations. They need her. She doesn't need them. I also don't walk into crap shows. I'm at the level and experience I don't have to. Sounds like she's in the same spot. It's also her job, her life, and her decisions on how to manage it. Are you going to work at these jobs with her? No? Keep your nose out of it then. OP. Well, you've convinced me. Plus all of the other comments. I apologized to her and we talked stuff out a little bit. To be honest, it's a lot of culture shock for me. I'm a first-generation college student and I've never heard someone speak in an interview the way she did. And to be honest, I think I've been kind of hurting over how easy it is for her to go, thanks but no thanks, to roles offering $150,000 to $300,000 yearly. In my field, the most I'll probably ever make is like $70,000, and that's at senior levels. And I feel like I was just so incredulous that anyone would even consider turning down that kind of pay. She makes $160K now, so any of those jobs would have been a great salary. But she's a PE, which means she's liable for whatever work she does and holds herself to a really high ethics standard. And she has real concerns that a bunch of companies she's interviewing with could hurt someone doing what they're doing. Which was also a shock to hear about, to be honest. How a bunch of well-regarded companies are apparently sketchy behind closed doors. Like, I was so caught up in the, how could someone ever reject $200,000 or $300,000 from several top companies, that it didn't really hit me that her concerns were literally dead serious. And I jumped to thinking that she's dragging her feet on moving, which to be honest, might be a bit of an insecurity too. So thanks to everyone who commented, I needed the wake-up call that I was being a jerk, and apparently an idiot at job interviews too. Sounds like she should have vetted you a little better. Stay in your lane. You're the jerk. Forced to move cabins by management. I used to work on cruise ships in the spa. Had been working for a couple years and was pretty good at my job, so I started training to be an assistant manager so I could step up to manager. Mainly for the much nicer work schedule and raise in pay because being a normal spa member was horrible. I was working hard, staying way past when I should have gone home, some days only going to my cabin for a couple of hours just to sleep, so I was hardly in my room ever. Then my roommate's contract ended and I got a new roommate. Let's call her Rita. Rita was Australian and just married. We were cruising the Mediterranean, so in order for her to talk to her husband, she had to call him at very odd times. I didn't mind as she wasn't super loud when chatting with him. The first month we shared a cabin was fine. Nothing spectacular, but fine. Then she woke up one morning and decided she wanted to try to make my life horrible. I don't know what I did to make her hate me. If I did, I would have wanted to fix it, as living away from your friends and family in such a stressful environment is difficult enough. I don't know, maybe she got cabin fever. So as I said before, I only really went to my cabin to shower and sleep, and that meant my stuff was hardly touched. I had the bottom bunk, so I kept my stuff at the foot of my bed and under a chair I was using as a bedside table. Her stuff, however, was all over the place. She also started being extra noisy whenever I was trying to sleep. We were set up to be on different teams, so a roommate will have some privacy for a couple of hours every time you had some time off, normally in port for a morning 3 times a week. I would start work at 7 a.m. and work until about 10 p.m., some days till past midnight. I was tired when I was in my cabin, but then she would insist on being the most annoying person on earth. She would dry her hair at 2 a.m., watch a movie on loud, drink beer loudly, and be noisy on the top bunk. Then she went lower than I could ever dream. She hooked up with my ex-boyfriend, who I broke up with because he cheated on me while I was there. I was so fed up with her and complained to my manager, who said I just needed to deal with it or date an officer with his own cabin. I was miserable. Then finally we had a cruise where head office was cruising with us to check on standards and launch a new product. I had known this lady for years and she knew me well too. We got along well. One night after dinner, I get called into the office. I thought maybe I was finally getting that promotion. Boy, was I wrong. Head office and my manager had called me in to tell me to move out of my cabin, in which I had been for 7 months with only 2 months to go. Apparently, Rita had gone and told them I was the horrible roommate, that I was being noisy on purpose and being disrespectful. She had even claimed that I stuck her toothbrush in the toilet. Toothbrush was shown to me, and I'd never even seen this toothbrush in my life. Also, it made me worry that maybe she had done this to my toothbrush. I fired back and asked my managers why they would think I would do something so disgusting after knowing me for so long. And they replied, they believe me, but as there's no way to disprove Rita, I had to be the bigger person and move out. I had an hour to pack up and transfer cabins. I was humiliated and heartbroken that someone would be so mean, but then anger kicked in. So I packed up my stuff, but I put on my most annoying music, blocked the toilet, knowing it won't be fixed until the next day, and placed the mattresses outside in the hallway so she would have to fetch it herself. Our cabin was also the only cabin with a mini fridge, and I took that whole thing with me, even though I didn't use it. I left all her stuff in the fridge on the counter and set the thermostat to hot. I had some glitter from parties that I spilled on the carpet and spread all over the floor. Whoops. My maintenance friends also heard of my unfair treatment and took it upon themselves to turn off the hot water in the cabin, and when it was reported, they put it last on the list of things that needed to be fixed. Rita complained about me stealing the fridge, but as it was never hers to begin with, and it was still in a spa cabin, there was nothing she could do. My new roommate was lovely, very happy to have a fridge, and never had a disagreement with me. Rita quit and went home 2 weeks later. Troublesome guest ruins it for everyone else. At our hotel, we have a pool. It's not the biggest or the best pool in the area, but it exists. A few months ago, the pool heater broke, so the pool was ice cold because of the winter temperatures. Our owner ordered a new one back in November within a few days of it not working, but it never arrived. After a few negative reviews about the pool not being heated and the order getting canceled, with no new heater arriving until February at the earliest, management decided to close the pool and take the time to do other things to it and make sure that the other parts are working properly. Less than a week after we closed the pool for this maintenance, I got a call from someone asking the price of a room. Told them the rate, but they didn't like it and said it was cheaper online. Said that if you can find a cheaper rate online, then book it, since I can't honor a rate that you say you found online, but warned them about how those rates have less flexibility and worse cancellation policies. They hung up without saying anything after that. A few minutes later, I see a new reservation come up from a third party with an infamous no cancel rate. For those who don't know, the no cancel rate from third parties is exactly how it sounds. No matter what, you cannot cancel the reservation nor change the dates, regardless of when you booked it. These are some of the cheapest rates you can find, but one of the worst reservations if things change. Bottom line, don't make reservations with this rate unless you know for sure you're going to be there for the dates you put in. Anyway, about 4 hours later, a woman shows up with her 2 kids, saying she's checking in under the no cancel reservation. I check it, and it's registered to 2 adults and 2 kids. As I'm starting to get the registration card printed with our hotel's terms on it, the woman asks what time the pool closes. I explain that it's closed because of our mechanical issues. She gets surprised, tells me in a kind of angry tone she booked the room so her kids can swim before she asks to cancel the reservation so they can go somewhere else. After I tell her that the reservation was a non-cancel reservation and she would not be refunded, she starts getting upset. "What do you mean you can't cancel? I haven't checked in yet and your pool isn't working." I'm sorry, if you booked directly through our hotel, then I could cancel. But I can't without you still being charged, as it was through a third party with their specific cancellation rules. "I called a few hours earlier. Why didn't you tell me the pool wasn't open? I wouldn't have booked otherwise." It was a slow night and I only had one phone call, so I knew she was the one who had just asked for room rates and wanted us to book it for cheaper than online. "I was the one who talked to you, and you never asked about the pool, just the rate. We got disconnected after I said if you find a cheaper rate online to book it there, and I didn't have a way to contact you otherwise." "Well, either open the pool or I'm leaving. I expect a refund if I leave, or I'm going to leave a bad review." Even if I wanted to at that point, I couldn't open the pool since we drained it the night before. I just said to her again that she is not getting refunded, so she can either stay the night or go somewhere else and still get charged the night. She left, but not before saying that she will be calling corporate. Sure enough, less than 10 minutes later, corporate does call and ask for my side. I tell them that she booked a no-cancel reservation after we couldn't honor a rate she saw in a third party, and that's why we aren't refunding her. They asked about the pool situation, and I told them that it was indeed closed, but the guest didn't ask about it, so I didn't warn her over the phone. The person actually laughed, saying if he had $1 for every time he got a call about an issue that wouldn't be one if the guest asked the hotel in advance, he wouldn't need to work. I laughed back and asked if he needed any more information. He didn't and said he'll tell the guest she isn't getting a refund and they needed to talk to the third-party site, not our hotel's brand corporate. An hour after we hung up, I get a call from third party asking about the reservation. Usually, third parties kind of ask in a demanding way that we refund the guests, or ask to refund them, which upsets me, but this person didn't. He just asked one single, normally, like he was required to ask, and verified that it is a no cancel on my end. I confirmed, and he was like, "That's what I thought. Thank you," and hung up. I know I'm preaching to the choir with y'all, but book directly. It's the only way to have flexibility and to cancel, even after the hotel's cancellation policy if they make an exception. And especially if you're staying somewhere because of an amenity, make sure that it's open before you book. Whether you think I'm in the wrong or the guest, it doesn't matter. I'm not a heartless jerk, as someone DM'd me saying. I did feel for them, but there was nothing that I could really do about it. There was no way of notifying the guest that the pool was down unless I said that in the first second of the call. You can hate me because of this story. I don't care anymore. I don't need to explain every little detail of what happened for your amusement, especially since it seems half of you are trolls or want to stir up crap. Am I the jerk for changing the locks on my house after my fiance made a key without my permission? I, 25 female, own a beautiful 4-bedroom house. I bought it when I was 23 after letting my business partner take our shared assets in exchange for $600,000. We owned a few properties together since we had bought our first place at 20 and 21 back when we were dating, and even though we didn't work out, we stayed in business together. I closed on my house a few months after my 23rd birthday. I had only been working part-time while I was managing our properties, so aside from my bed and some little things from my apartment, I stayed in my house for months while it was basically empty. I had always wanted to be a pastry chef, and a local community college has a program that lets you get your certificate in almost anything for free with just 16 weeks of classes, and if you choose to continue afterward, your credits will roll over. That's where I met my fiance, James, who's 27. James was a chef at a high-end restaurant. He had been working since 16. He started as a busser and worked his way up. While he had a lot of experience, he wanted to have a degree to back it up. We hit it off pretty quickly. He even taught me how to drive, helped me develop recipes, and helped me pick out the perfect spot to put my bakery. He proposed to me in Jamaica on August 8, 2022. When we got back home, I moved in with him. I've been perfecting recipes in my house as I had taken the time to make the kitchen to my liking. I tend to put my phone on Do Not Disturb just to make sure I have no distractions. There have been a few times when I've missed calls from James, and I see that it really bothers him, but it's not like I go at random times. I have a set schedule, and I rarely go off of it. About a week ago, I finished baking quite early and ended up taking a nap. My phone was still on Do Not Disturb, and I woke up to James banging on the door. He told me he had been calling me for hours. I told him I had forgotten to take my phone off Do Not Disturb. He suggested that if he should have a key, he could use it for emergencies or in case something like this happened again. I said no because this is my safe space and I'm still adjusting to living with someone. The other day when I finished baking, I noticed it was raining and I decided to call James because I don't feel comfortable driving in the rain. He didn't call me when he got here. He knocked on the door, and when I opened it, he complained about getting wet while waiting for me and said he wouldn't have to wait if he had had a key. I pointed out that he could have called me and I would have just come to the car. He said that wasn't the point and me not giving him a key was a slap in the face. Yesterday, I noticed he had one of those minute keys in his glove compartment while looking for my lip gloss. I left it in his car and I immediately knew what he did and called my brother to help me change the locks. Last night at dinner, I let him know I found the key and told him it wouldn't be of any use since I had changed the locks. We argued and we haven't spoken since last night. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. You for not trusting your fiance enough to give him a key, and him for breaking your trust and making one without permission. You better get a rock-solid prenup protecting that house as a premarital asset if you still want to go through with the marriage, because it's going to go from your house to both of yours otherwise. Everyone sucks here. Your fiance should respect your boundaries. However, if you don't trust him enough to let him into your safe space, maybe you need to consider not getting married to him or being engaged yet. If you're going to spend your lives together, you should probably feel comfortable living with him. It sounds like you're pretty young and haven't known him that long. If you're not there yet, you need to have a conversation with him and be upfront about how you're feeling, why you feel that way, and how you think you can move forward as a couple, and be prepared for him to be upset or have his own opinions. It sounds like there's a bigger issue here than a house key. Everyone sucks here. He shouldn't have made the key without your permission, and you made it very clear he didn't have your permission. At the same time, this is your fiancé and you live with him. Why on earth wouldn't you trust him with a key to your house? Especially when he has only asked for one in response to actual situations where it was problematic that he didn't have one. Your relationship seems very one-sided and, from the looks of it, may soon be very one-personed. You're the jerk. If I told my fiancé that she couldn't have a key to my extra house because it's my safe space while living in her home and using her resources the whole time, I wouldn't have a fiancé. The fact that he asked more than once for a key and you said no really makes me question your motives as well as your ability to have a real relationship with your fiancé. Trust and communication are the foundation of any healthy relationship, and you aren't very good at either. Am I the jerk for telling my mom the wrong name and embarrassing her? My husband and I had a baby last week. We announced to our close family and friends that we were pregnant at 11 weeks along. We said that we would be waiting to share until I was further along. My mother ignored us and posted our pregnancy news on her social media immediately. We got congratulations messages from dozens of people. When we learned that she had shared it, we told her to delete it as it was not her news to share. She argued, saying things like, "I'm the grandma. It's absolutely my news to share. You can't tell me what I can and cannot post online," and so on. She finally took down her post after we begged and begged her. Skip to 20 weeks along, we were asked what his name was going to be. When we said we weren't going to share, no one complained except my mom. She constantly asked and would try to trip us up. After 3 weeks of her asking 3 to 4 times a day what her baby's name is, I decided to tell her that the baby's name is John. That's not true, but I wanted her to stop asking what his name was going to be. I then told her that she must keep it fully confidential and that no one else can know his name until he was born. I figured that she would leave it be and not tell anyone. That was a mistake. My mom, aunts, and cousins threw us a baby shower. Everything seemed normal except for a few people whispering and pointing at the gifts. I didn't think anything of it until I began opening the gifts. The first gifts were gifts from our registry. Then I got a gift from my cousin of a set of monogrammed blankets and pillows. I was confused as we hadn't said what the baby's name or initials were. I then opened my aunt's gift, which was a decorative frame with the name John. I got upset and my mom grinned. My mom then stood up, shushed the room, and said, "I know OP wasn't going to share it until after, but the baby's name is John." It was awkward. Everyone looked confused. Those who my mom had already told stood around looking smug. I got up and whispered to her that we were not going to name the baby John. I had told her that so she would stop pressuring me to share the name. My mom's face got red and she mumbled something and left, along with many of my aunts and cousins on her side. The party was pretty much ruined after this, so I returned the personalized gifts and went home. I received calls from my mom's side saying that it was awful to embarrass my mom. My husband said she wouldn't have been embarrassed if she had kept the name private. Our baby came a few days after his due date. All of this drama has caused a lot of stress with my mom and family on her side. My husband, dad, and in-laws are incredibly supportive and have been gushing over our baby. My mom and her side have been saying rude things about us to the rest of the family. Am I the jerk for telling my mom the wrong name and embarrassing her in front of her family? Was it wrong to hide the real name? Not the jerk. Your mother has continued to prove that she is untrustworthy and selfish. Clearly, you didn't want to be in a position to have to lie to her, but she was being relentless. Not the jerk. I'm sorry your mom has so little respect for you and your privacy, and congrats on the baby. Would I be the jerk if I went to my daughter's birthday party? My oldest daughter is turning 8, and her dad's family, we've been divorced almost 2 years, is throwing her a pool party at our community center. Her dad and I are on minimal speaking terms. Not my choice. He chooses not to get along with me. And he is recently engaged, and his fiancée is pregnant. I barely know her. I used to be very close to his entire family. They're tight-knit, as my ex and I were high school sweethearts. But since the split, I'm very low contact except with his mom, who will always hold that mom number 2 place in my heart. And even then, I only see her when my kids are involved. My daughter invited me to her party, and I want to go because she wants me there. Her dad told me he would pick her up from my house and take her and her little sister to the party, so I mentioned that she had invited me to come. He responds that it's the first time his fiancés and his families will be meeting, and he won't say no to me coming, but asked me to respectfully decline my daughter's invitation. The day of her birthday, my daughters will be with me and we will celebrate, but it won't be a big party with her friends, etc. What would make me the jerk here? Declining and potentially hurting my daughter's feelings, which is not what I want to do, or attending and possibly making adults act like adults? Update. I also messaged him. Although I'm pretty disappointed that you've chosen your fiancé over your daughter's birthday wishes, I told her that she will have one celebration with each parent this year. I hope all of her future events will be about her and not about your fiancé, in-laws, or anyone else, quite frankly, and I can attend in peace. Have a good evening. I won't engage if he responds, but he gets to know these celebrations won't be about anyone but our daughter from now on. My ex actually told my daughter the sentiment behind my last message to him. She called me asking why I think dad values his fiancé over her. What the heck? I had her promptly put him on the phone for a conversation about what's appropriate for kids to understand about grown-up disagreements. He disagreed, while stating that she doesn't understand social nuances of the party invitation while thinking she should be privy to my message. He also said his point about the introduction was just an excuse for me not to come. In the end, I told him to not throw me or his fiancé under the bus when he could just say to me, "You're not welcome, don't come," and then apologize to my daughter for her getting more involved than necessary in an adult misunderstanding. Ugh, why did I ever have kids with that man? Not the jerk. Divorced dad here with kids. It's not about you or your husband, it's about your daughter. Honestly, if his daughter wants her mom there, the father should put his feelings aside and welcome you for the sake of his daughter. It's called co-parenting. He should want to make his daughter happy, especially on her birthday. The fact that he's not doing this speaks volumes for his character. Also, using a kid's birthday party to have the two families meet for the first time is weird to me. That's just one more thing that takes the attention away from the birthday girl. You're the jerk if you attend. I understand not wanting to hurt your daughter's feelings, but take this time to make it a teaching moment. I'm divorced as well, and I always respect my ex's wishes if he asks me not to come to a family event that's about the kids. Unfortunately, this is the way life is now. You don't speak to his family anymore, so there's no reason, other than your daughter, to go. You're taking her to do something fun on her birthday, and that's enough. Am I the jerk if I get mad over my husband not doing the dishes? I'm female 24, and my husband is male 22. We've been married officially and living together for 3 months now. It's been great, but one major issue we have is the dishes. Now, I don't want to play the sympathy card, but recently I've been working 55-hour weeks, and he's only working 35 to 40. I know it doesn't seem like much, but most nights I come home exhausted or sick from something I picked up at work to make dinner and run the budget, things like that. And when I come home, he's playing guitar, video games, or watching TV. When we first moved in together, we had an agreement that if I cook, he'll do the dishes. But recently, it's been all on me to cook, to do dishes, to clean the entire kitchen while he does the bare minimum. Yes, he can organize things and take out bins once or twice a week, but it is still not enough. I brought it up recently that I'm feeling overwhelmed, and he told me that me asking him to do the dishes every day annoys him, since his mom used to volunteer him to do dishes when he lived with her and nagged him for hours on end until it was done. She also cut off his bedroom electric if he didn't do the dishes. He says he feels he chips in more than enough. I told him he's a grown man with his own house, and if he's not willing to share chores, then I'll stop doing my part, and he'll see how much I actually do compared to him. So I've stopped doing dishes. 3 days in, and the sink is full and the kitchen stinks. Apparently, it makes me the jerk, according to him and our friends, but I feel like I need to stand my ground. Am I the problem? Not the jerk, but this is exactly why people should live together before marriage. You find this stuff out much sooner. He should be doing more, that much is obvious. Problem is, he doesn't care. Telling him you won't do anything has had no effect. Talking has had no effect. So how far are you willing to go? How much of a deal breaker is this for you? That's what you need to think about. Not the jerk. Should ask him if he thought you married a husband or adopted a pet. If he isn't willing to pull his weight as a husband, then you will be returning him to the pound. OP. Part of me is glad I've lost my pregnancies before now. Couldn't in this moment imagine him as a father. Not the jerk. Is it too late to get the marriage annulled? He doesn't want to be an adult or a team player. He wants you to be his new mummy that looks after him but doesn't give him chores to do. I don't see this marriage lasting. Honestly, maybe you'll be embarrassed to let people know you made a mistake, but it's better than living with that mistake for the next 60 years, and you need better friends. Edit. Also, it should have been a big red flag when his own mother had to find extreme measures to get him to be an adult, just to do the dishes. It wasn't like she was making him clean the whole house. It was just the dishes. You're the jerk. Since everyone here is assuming you're telling us the whole story, When it's obvious you're leaving quite a bit out, I'm going with you're the jerk. If your husband told the story, I can guarantee you his version would sound very different than yours. The only question is, who are we going to believe? And let's be honest, since this is Reddit, everyone will assume you're the one telling the truth. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.